Good afternoon. Let's go ahead and begin the Education Committee. Welcome, everyone. We've got a full calendar, and I'll go over that in just a moment for the committee. I know we had the Insurance Committee. It was a little late getting out, but I do think we have a quorum. Would the clerk please make sure you sign in? And as soon as you sign in, we'll make sure the clerk open the board up. Everyone voted that's here? Okay, we got a couple more. Everybody voted? Everybody signed in that's here on the roll? Chairman Raper? Yeah, okay, good. Okay, Madam Clerk, take the roll.
Mr. Chairman, you have 19 members present. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Okay, members, if I could have everyone's attention. We have a full calendar, as I mentioned. We're going to do a lot of jumping around on the bills today. We're not going to take them in order. Right. And so we get into that in just a second. First of all, personal orders from anyone. Representative Barrett. McKenzie. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Members of the committee, I have with me today a group of elected officials from, I think, one of the greatest counties in the state, Hickman County, and they're here in the third row. If y'all would stand up and let us recognize you today. Hickman County.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed touring Hickman County with you this past summer and fall. Thank you very much for that. That was a great day. I really enjoyed that. Let's go to Representative Mayberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have multiple educators here from Clarkson Montgomery County. If you could all stand, we want to recognize you today.
Come on. Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we all know, today is St. Patrick's Day, and I'm wearing a lapel pin that the late, great Representative Beck gave me. There were two times he was always excited, but there was two times that I saw him the most excited, and that was on St. Patrick's Day. He's about 6'5", 6'6", and was green all the way down and just happy. St. Patrick's Day and the day that we voted to fund the Tennessee Titans Stadium. But God rest his soul. He was a great man and a great legislator. So just wanted to acknowledge the late Representative Bill Beck. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Chairman Slater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And today is Homeschool Day on the Hill that has been organized by the Tennessee Home Educators Association. And I think that there are some folks in the room for that. If you'd stand, please. And their executive director is in the back, Claiborne Thornton. Let's make them feel welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else like the personal order or announcement? Okay, well, thank you very, very much. Representative Mayberry, I'm sorry I didn't ask you before. Would you open us up with a prayer?
Absolutely. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you for this day. We thank you, Lord, for the opportunity that we have to do the work of the state here in education. Lord God, we thank you for all the students that we serve and all the great educators that we serve and everyone involved in education. Lord, bless this time we have here and guide and direct us today. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Members, as I started out, we are going to jump around. We've got about 80 bills, 54 today on this current calendar, about another 30 or something probably flowing from subcommittees. And so we made the decision to make sure that we stay ahead of the Senate, that we would take bills up to date, except for a couple of these first few. that did not require a lot of discussion in subcommittee, that were bills that were maybe easier to comprehend. So we're going to probably focus on those. So let me just give you, for those who may be sitting, if that are here to carry a bill, if you don't hear this number in the top 8, then you're free to come and go. And if we get to you and you're not here, we'll come on back in, we'll get to you. But item number 1, House Bill 25. Let's see, it's not 2532. Different calendar. Item number 1 on the calendar, House Bill 912. Okay, we got 2 calendars here. We're going to roll that to final calendar, House Bill 912. Without objection. All right. What calendar do I have? Thank you. Yeah, we're still trying to go through the assortment we've done here. Okay, item number 2, House Bill 2532 by Leader Lambert. You're recognized. You have a motion. You have a second. Do you have any amendments on the bill that we need to recognize?
Mr. Chairman, only the amendment I believe that was flowing through from the subcommittee.
We do need to adopt it. Members, you have Amendment 13975. It does not rewrite the bill, but we do need to add it in full committee. So you got a motion second. Can you explain that amendment before we add it?
Mr. Chairman, I believe it deletes section 3.
That is correct. In section 3, we can have legal help us here if that,
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
you recognize.
Yes, sir. Section 3 is included in a different bill that I'm carrying that would deal with the tax credit that was created by the federal government last year.
Okay, members, with that explanation on that amendment, any objection to adding it to the bill for proper discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor adding Amendment 13975 onto the bill indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, your bill is amended. Let's get the explanation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And at its core, this is a very simple bill. It just adds 15,000 additional education freedom scholarships to make the total 40,000. I stand ready for questions.
Open up for discussion. Representative Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Wow. It's hard to know where to start with this when we don't have enough information of the current program, who we're funding, and what difference. I've been up here a lot of years, and we have continually said that we need vouchers so that those students in struggling schools can attend private schools. But what we don't have is any data that shows that's who's attending private schools and getting this subsidized education by our public tax dollars. And so when we are not collecting data to know, are these kids that were, as we were told, stuck in a school that wasn't that was failing them? Are those the kids that are using these vouchers? Or are we just subsidizing the private school tuition of folks who have been in private school their entire lives? And so what we can see from who was in private school before, how many kids are added to seats in our counties, what we have found out is it looks like 86% of those folks getting vouchers were never in a public school. They've always been in a private school. And so we are subsidizing their private school education. And so to me, I see that there's a fiscal note of about $155 million on this piece of legislation. And what that means is that's an additional $155 million to the $100+ million that's already there for the current vouchers. And within about 3 years, we're going to hit $1 billion for private school vouchers. In Knox County, Knox County public school students get $5,800 from the state for their education. Private school kiddos get $7,300 for their education. So this, to me, is unacceptable when you have the public school kids getting about $1,500 less than the private school kids. In Davidson County, the public school kids are getting $4,400 while the private school kids get $7,300. I don't understand what we are doing here, and we're okaying this to go further. This is hundreds of millions of dollars out of our budget, where these private schools, how can you call yourself private if you take public tax dollars? How can we say that you don't have to hire certified teachers, you don't have to teach our state curriculums and standards, you don't have to evaluate your teachers the way we do in a very specific and stringent way, you don't have to test your students with the same test that our public tax dollars go to? How on earth are you justifying hundreds of millions of dollars out of our budget with no accountability for how it's being spent? When I sat down, the Knox County delegation and the Knox County School Board and the superintendent and administration from our schools, they presented us with a 50-page booklet of how they were spending those public tax dollars. They're getting $1,500 less per student, but they gave a beautiful printout, 50 pages, of how the money was being spent, where it was going, what schools were improving, what schools were stuck, what they were doing about those schools that were stuck. But we've got $1 billion in just a few years going out to these private schools that have zero of this accountability. Can you justify to me how it's possible that $1 billion goes out of our budget? It's the only place I'm aware of in the budget where there's no accountability for those dollars.
Thank you. And because I do have a number of people wanting to speak, I'll have one follow-up, then I move on to the next person. Leo Lambert, would you like to respond?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just from an independent evaluation, I'd say about 23% of what you said is accurate. The rest is not. So $13,861.67 is what we spend per child, per public school child. That's state, local, and federal dollars. $13,861.67. I'm glad you're making note of that. These scholarships are $7,295 in the current budget year, and will be $7,530 in the upcoming budget year. Those are facts and figures. That's what they are. As far as the percentage you threw out there of 87, 88% that you claim come from private school to private school, public to private, that information is not kept right now. And it shouldn't be. These are tax dollars paid for by Tennesseans. They paid it into the coffers from their primarily sales tax dollars. And for 20,000 of them, they get to get a scholarship to use that for their child's education. I choose for our children, my wife and I choose for our children to go into the public schools in Sumner County. They're fantastic public schools. That's where my children are today. But there are families in my district whose children have unique needs that they feel, and they know their children better than you and I do. They're not our children to raise from the government. We're to provide a free public education that's out there for them, but their parents know those children best. And what we did last year for the first time in Tennessee history was allow for universal school choice within a budget. We provided 20,000 scholarships, and 56,000 families raised their hand and said, we'd love to take advantage of that program, again, using their tax dollars. That money doesn't belong to you and I. It belongs to the people of this state. At the same time that this program, even if expanded in this way, would cost approximately $310 million, and it won't expand unless the legislatures down the road would expand it. That's the only way it expands. So your numbers of where it's going to go and how much it's going to cost and everything else, that only happens if the legislature expands it. It is put guidance in the law from last year that should go up by at least 5,000, but that's subject to appropriation just like everything else is, and that's up to a vote of this body. So there's 56,000 families that have asked for your help. And the reason to say yes is because that's our bosses. We serve the people of this state. The same reason we've said yes to adding $4.4 billion to K-12 public education over the last decade, which will put the total spend for K-12 public education this year at approximately $9.5 billion. Now, that's a significant increase in funding, which a few of those budgets you voted for. I appreciate that. The rest of us voted for all those budgets. And I hope it's something we can all join together and vote for this year to make sure every public school teacher gets up above $50,000 starting pay. The reason I highlight all that is these scholarships, again, $7,295 per child this year, $7,530 for this coming year. That falls far short of what we spend on every public school child and should. The bulk of our children are going to be in public schools, and we all want them to be the best schools in the country. But there are some children that are falling through the cracks, and their parents should have choice. And in my opinion, school choice should not just be for the rich. It should be for those that, we can go into this in a few moments, I'm sure I'll get more questions about this, that fall below the poverty level and still have some options. So I know we disagree on this issue, but I hope we agree on the fact that we should be trying to raise the level of education for all students in this state, regardless of whether they're in a private school, a public school, or a home school. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Johnson, you have one follow-up? You
Yeah.
recognize?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. 23% accurate. That's interesting. I would love for you to point by point, the 77% I got wrong. I'd love to hear you tell me where I was wrong. I was referring to the state portion, and we are a state body. We only govern what the state portion of funding is for those public school and private school kiddos. So we should only be discussing here that state portion. And many of us believe that the state portion should not be almost $3,000 lower in some counties than it is. And that's based on this year's numbers, not next. We'll have to do those. That'll be interesting too. But we are 47th in the country. 47th, we're in the bottom 4 of funding public ed in this state. So you can say some big numbers that we've increased education by, but it's not keeping up. And teachers are currently making less today than they did 10 years ago when you consider cost of living. And $50,000 now ain't cutting it. We need to be at about $60,000 for a starting teacher. That's just the reality of it. So you've added more money, but it's not keeping up because we're still 47th in the country. We are dead last in our Southeast region. Mississippi now funds at $1,000 per pupil more than Tennessee. So my numbers are correct. My numbers refer to state monies and your tax dollars, public schools. I pay taxes for public schools. The state has never had to educate a kid for me because I don't have children. However, I proudly pay my taxes so that my community has good public schools, so property values stay high, so we have less crime in our community, so we have an educated workforce in my community, and we pay for public schools because those public schools make our communities better. Do I need to ask for $7,300 a year because I don't have a kid that my taxes are going to educate? To me, that's ridiculous. I'm proud to pay my taxes to educate other people's kids because it keeps my property values high and keeps our kids educated. So do not pretend like our tax dollars educate our kids. If that's the case, then I don't like my local park and I don't like the tennis courts at my local park and I want to play on the tennis courts at the country club and I'll need a voucher to go to the country club.
Thank you. Unless the sponsor wants to follow up, I will go to Representative Barrett. You're recognized.
No. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sponsor, I've got a few statistical data to kind of read here into the record, but also just want to make this point before I get into that. Part of the issue I think that some people have, or at least the question that a lot of people have, is about capacity and availability in the private schools, that by doubling the size of this program from 20,000 to 40,000, when we don't know how many spots are even available in public school or in private schools to be filled, logic tells us that there probably aren't any or very few spots available. Because what we did last year is when we passed this Education Freedom Scholarship Act, the Fiscal Note and Fiscal Review Committee told us then that they estimated that 65% of these scholarships were going to go to students that were already in private school. And the part of the basis for that estimate was looking at capacity and how many schools they're actually going to qualify to accept the vouchers or the scholarships. Sorry, I'll use the proper term. And based on that, the capacity available in those schools meant that most of this money that we were spending taxpayer dollars on were going to go to students that were already electing and exercising their freedom of choice to be in a private school. So creating the program to begin with did not really create any new choice. It just created a voucher to supplement the cost that people were already choosing to pay. So if you look up in this dais, there's about 8 empty seats. And if we wanted to incentivize more people to fill these seats, we would give out 8 scholarships to fill these seats. We wouldn't give out 8,000 or 20,000 or 40,000. And that's the problem with the mentality of doubling this bill now or doubling this program now is even with the priority list that we have listed in the bill that says that it's supposed to go to students that have economic restrictions, 100% of free and reduced lunch, then 300%. That's not going to actually happen because these seats are already full. And so when the seats are already full and we work through that priority list, we're going to land on number 5, which says all remaining scholarships are going to go to anybody else, regardless of any restriction. So the question is, what is the point of this plan in this program? Is it to get people out of public schools and give them the pathway to get out of that? Or are we just throwing money at people that have already exercised that choice?
Sponsor, Leader Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, and thank you for focusing on numbers. Always like that. There are over 950,000 children in public schools, and that is a good thing. Many of those public schools are doing a great job. We're investing a significant amount more of taxpayer dollars into those public schools. There's a very small number that are in private schools, and even in states that have gone full school choice for anybody that wants it with a true voucher program where the money follows the child. Because remember, this is not that. I appreciate you saying scholarship because this is a set amount of funds for a set amount of scholarships. And it had a floor last year that was put in that said no public school would lose even 1 red cent for disenrollment. And so this is a program specifically for parents that feel like their child will do better in a setting of a private school, and many of them cannot afford it. Now, some of them are like the sheriff's deputy that called me after we passed this program last year. They were one of those 20,000, and the number one reported income on the application was $30,000 a year. The average income of all 20,000 applications that were approved last year was $96,000 annually. If this is expanded, okay, and I say those numbers because I'm going to get back to my friend the sheriff's deputy in a moment. Most reported $30,000 annually. Average $96,000 annually. That's for those 10,000 that fell below the poverty level and the 10,000 that were wide open to everyone. It was still an average of $96,000 annually. If we expand this program to an additional 5,000 under the bill and then 15,000 people under this bill, the absolute priority 1 is those that already got the scholarship this last year. Keep continuity of education going. Priority 2 is a family of 4 that falls below 100% of poverty level. That's $57,720 a year for a family of 4. That's your next tranche that has a first opportunity at these. Priority 3 is those that fall under 300% of poverty level, which is $170,000, $160 a year for a family of 4. These are not rich people. The sheriff's deputy that called me was working a second job. His wife was working 2 different jobs because they had 2 kids. Both of them had some very unique learning needs that weren't being met by, again, one of the best public school systems in the state in Sumner County. And they were going to a private school that their children were thriving in. That's the whole point of this. It's not about trying to transport kids from public to private or private to public or private to private or whatever. It's just making sure these parents, like that sheriff's deputy that falls, I guarantee you, within the income levels I've just mentioned, to have choice. Why should choice just be for rich Tennesseans? I don't think it should be. I think it should be for every parent.
Thank you. You want to follow up? You're recognized.
I do. Thank you. Again, Leader, the issue is that there there is no capacity. There are no available seats for these students to even get into these schools. We can create 100,000 scholarships, and it's not going to create any new capacity to create new options and choice for students and families to be able to put their kids into a private school. This bill doesn't accomplish that. And thank you for pointing out that you want to make sure that this is available just for, not just for rich kids, because the data proves otherwise. We have data based on the number of scholarships that have been awarded to each county and a breakdown of county by county. In the top 4 counties, 54% of the scholarships are going to the top 4 counties. They're going to Davidson, Shelby, Knox, and Hamilton, which already had the ESA program. Then you come down to 12. The top 12 counties take up 81% of these scholarships. When you factor all of this in, the top 20 counties, 90% of all of the 20,000 scholarships are going to 20 counties. The other 76 counties are spreading out 1,800 scholarships among them. Now, the damning part of that statistical data is 9 of the 10 wealthiest counties in this state are in that top 12. That means these scholarships are going to the wealthiest kids in the wealthiest families in the wealthiest counties. That's the reality. That's what's actually happening. So if we're trying to make sure that these scholarships are going to go to students that have the need, then we need to make sure that the priority is written in such a way that the actual income limitations create that advantage for those students. And you mentioned earlier that we're just giving taxpayer money back to the taxpayers that paid it in. You realize that in order to cover the cost of a single voucher, a family has to spend $110,000 in order to generate enough sales tax to cover one voucher. There's only one county I know of in the whole state that has a median household income that would satisfy that. So we're not just giving people back their taxpayer money. We're taking everybody's taxpayer money and we're giving it to a select few. And that's the problem with the program.
Thank you. No. Keep it down. Sponsor.
Well, Mr. Chair, maybe to balance out, and I'll get applause in a moment, but I'm not going to wait for it. The counties you mentioned are the densest populations in the state. There's well over 3 million people in those counties. It would not surprise me that virtually any program that you would look at that is a state program that's going to have the most participants in those 4 counties. So I deeply respect the numbers that you've shared, but there's a lot of people in those counties that are struggling and that are in middle income and lower income. And quite frankly, they're 4 of the most expensive places to live in this state. Those families are struggling sometimes worse than any other family that lives in rural Tennessee. And so we have struggles there too, which is why it's a statewide program. I didn't hit your question earlier, and I apologize for that. So we have not had any issue thus far with any of the schools that have participated in this program saying that they do not have seats enough for folks to be able to come in and participate. And part of the reason is, again, this is a small program. I mean, I've mentioned several times, well over 1 million kids in education, an education facility somewhere in this state, an institution of education somewhere. About 950,000 are in public schools. We're talking about 20,000 more seats. And so the vast majority of our kids are going to be in public schools. There's a small number that go to a private school or do homeschool. This doesn't really strain that system.
Thank you. Members, we've got about 6, 7 people on the list. Make sure your question is succinct and to the bill and keep it focused. Let's go to Representative Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to the sponsor. I'll be honest, and to the members, I hope we all are paying attention to what's being said because it's being laid out pretty clear that the program is not working. And so with that being said, you know, I umpire baseball. And just so happened I had a game with our local private school in Montgomery County. And I asked the coach what happened to his team. It used to be one of the better teams in the county, but now it's not. And he said, you know, tuition is going up. It went to $18,000 and we lost a lot of students. So if you lost a lot of students, that tells me that $18,000 was even too much for those who were there. So a family of 4 that you mentioned earlier with 57,000, they still wouldn't be able to afford to go to that school with a voucher and to include another $11,000, $12,000 on top of it. So it's not working. It's not meeting the intent of what it was supposed to do. There is no way that this Education Freedom Scholarship is meeting the intent. And the fact that we don't want the data tells us that. Because if we really wanted to know where taxpayers' dollars was going, we would have accountability. So how do we know, sponsor, that it is meeting the intent of what the program was supposed to do if we have no data? We never throw money at something if we don't even know if it's working. So how do we know if it's meeting the intent?
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll try to keep my answers shorter. I'm probably part of the issue on the length of the question, so it's not their fault, it's mine. So the way we know it's working is there were 20,000 scholarships available in year 1. There were 56,000 families that said we want to be a part of this, and we're going to test those families with those students with the nationally normed test, and we will know if they are getting a better education or not than wherever they were beforehand. But I believe that, again, our bosses are the people of Tennessee. That's who elected you and I both. I deeply respect your perspective on this, and I know you do mine as well. I think those families should have some additional choice than they have right now. The vast majority of our kids are going to be in public schools just like mine. That's good. We need to continue to strengthen those public schools. For a few families, they feel like with their kid, they know their kid better than you and I do or anybody else does. They feel like that kid needs a different learning environment. And we'll analyze that over years. But at the end of the day, the people of Tennessee have spoken in their applications to this program. They want the program. 56,000 have applied and only 20,000 scholarships were available.
Thank you. Do you have a follow-up?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman, and thank you so much. You know, you mentioned that the tax dollars belong to Tennesseans, and you're absolutely correct. But we were elected to be good stewards of the Tennessee tax dollars. So shouldn't we know, just because 50,000 people applied, it doesn't mean that it's meeting the intent of the students that you're trying to attract. Because 50,000 said, I want it, yeah, they probably do. It's 50,000 plus people who are over, $150,000. So they can afford that. But the ones that we're talking about that we want to attract, they're not the ones who are applying. They're not. And so how are we good stewards of taxpayers' dollars if we're not even keeping up with who actually applied? That's the problem with the program. We don't know. And to say that we're going to find out a few years down the road, that doesn't make sense to me. We don't find out down the road how much money we've thrown at a program that's not working. We find out now before we spend it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sponsor Leader Lamberth, or I go to Representative Hicks. Okay, Representative Tim Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Leader, for bringing this bill. I've heard probably all summer and all fall, like we all have, about data. Everybody worried about data. And I think the name Education Freedom Scholarship, it's easy to say. The reason it's easy to say, and the reason this seems so simple, I believe, is because it is a simple program. It's amazing to me how much government wants to make things complicated. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here. It's what we talk about. This is a very simple program. I know a lot of hardworking families. I don't know their income, don't want to know their income. They're using this program. I know a lot of hardworking families that didn't receive this program that would like to have this program. Whenever we was running this bill last year, there was there was really nothing that I can remember that was hidden because it's a very simple bill. Very simple. Education Freedom Scholarship. Yes. Data that I have is common sense. Most of this money went to folks that was already attending a private school. That is exactly the only way it can ever work. At some point, I do believe that those folks will get taken care of. It'll get filled up. And more folks eventually through the years will come and start taking advantage of this program. It's a parent's choice and a parent's right to be able to send their student to a school that they seem fit for their needs. So I'm encouraged with trying to add and have 40,000 of these scholarships. That's a drop in the bucket to what we spend. We have a great public education system. There's no doubt about it. And we spend a lot of money on it. This is not a lot of money for the folks that we're trying to serve. So thank you, Leader, and I appreciate the time, Chairman.
Thank you. Leader Lambert, any comment? Okay, let's go to the next one on the list, Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Wow. I'm taken back because I'm going to quick digest, and I think this is the mindset, and I think it's the sponsor's mindset as well. Basically, let's fill up the tranche with all the people in private school. Now, let's give all them money. Then we can have the excess move over. I think that's what I heard, and I think that's the sponsor's intent as well. And therein lies my issue. It can be a small number, but these are millions of dollars. And ladies and gentlemen, that rider that bounces it up every year is already in statute. So it's never going to be a cap. There's never a cap. So let's not talk about small numbers. But we're spending this money out of our general fund, not out of TISA, out of our general fund when we're struggling. And no one has argued the point that the capacity is not increasing. Nobody's argued that point that Representative Barrett made. No one's arguing that point. So why aren't we building buildings at these schools? If a school's increasing by 10, 15% a year, buildings should be built right now. That's not happening. It's not happening. There's a reason. So my first question to you and request, you threw out a lot of income numbers there that we don't have access to. You threw out 36,000, 96,000 average. We, the public, don't have access to. So these are numbers. So I'm asking where you got those numbers from, and I'm requesting those numbers be made public. All the numbers that led you to an average income and a minimum income, and cite the source for those. So please make those numbers public to us, because in my digging, I can't find that type of detail within what the Department of Education has released.
Is that your question, sir?
That's my first.
Okay,
Where those numbers come from.
I will go to the sponsor then, and you come back with your
Thank you.
follow-up.
Yeah, those came directly from the department. Be happy to provide those. And again, the most reported income on the Education Freedom Scholarship applications was $30,000 annually. It's each family that applied, $30,000 annually. The average was $96,000 annually. And if this program were to expand, a family of two gets first shot at the new scholarships that would be open. If it's just two people in the family, so think a single mother and her child, okay? She'd be making $37,000 or under $37,814 a year. She gets first shot at these new scholarships. If it was a family of four, it's $57,720. No matter where you live in this state, Those are not wealthy folks. Those are people that are barely hanging on. And I believe they should have choice just like others do. The next section, so it's the priority goes in this bill. First priority is those that already got the scholarship, because again, continuity of education. Second priority is those that are under 100,000 of poverty level, which is what I mentioned. Family of 2, 37,814. Family of 4, 57,720. The next available scholarship. So if all of them aren't utilized by 1 or 2, the next one down is less than 300% of poverty level. That same family of 2 would be 113,442. Family of 4, 173,160. And the reason you're not seeing buildings being built everywhere, issues with capacity, we're talking about 20,000 more kids. We're talking about 20,000 more students spread out over the entire state, where we have, again, 956,000 that are already in public schools. It's a relatively small amount of students when you look at it statewide.
Thank you. One follow-up here. Go ahead.
Thank you. But as you said earlier, we're concentrated in 4 counties. In Bradley County, I think the number was 65. In Athens, McMinn County, number's 35. Monroe County, these are actual vouchers that went out. The number is less than 50. So whereas the number in Knox County is 3,200, and it goes up from there. So these aren't being spread out. These are vouchers that are being given in our core areas that are amongst us. So, but my pushback is, as you say, a family of 2, they can't afford it. That $7,000 is not enough. Picking on a couple of schools in Knox, and these are rough numbers. I mean, Webb's like 28,000. The Catholic schools on average is about $13,000 to $14,000. They can't get that because most of these schools are not where firefighters and first responders live. So they're in neighborhoods that they can't afford a house anywhere within walking distance. If you're talking about a working family, they're going to need transportation. They can't get them there. So it does not include transportation, doesn't include uniform, doesn't include books, doesn't include all of the extracurricular things. So these numbers that you're talking about at the bottom, they can't get that $7,500 and make it. So it's not for them. That's why we need the numbers. You spoke eloquently yet last night about data and data driven and making sure who's afraid of data. No one should ever be afraid of data. That's a quote from you last night. So, but here we are, totally afraid of data because that's what's going to happen. It's not going to be that mother. It's not going to be that single parent. It's going to be the folks making the money. And you talk about the numbers going from 20-something thousand to 54,000. That's because they had a year whispering to each other, hey, I got that scholarship. You ought to get it too. I make $500,000. It doesn't matter. Apply for it and get it. That's why those numbers, but you're not even going to ask them what their income level is. You had the committee vote that down today. So again, you don't want to know the numbers because they're going to be revealing to you and the governor and those folks. So this is a shame. This is the only place that we're spending millions of dollars, potentially $500 million with zero accountability.
Thank you. Let's
Mr.
go.
Chairman?
You're recognized as a leader.
I can only say there's 30,000 kids roughly in Sumner County schools today. There's 656 families that chose to take advantage of this program and got a scholarship. I work for those 656 just like I work for the 30,000. We've chosen public school. My little brother's teaching at a public school today. He does a great job. I'm proud of him. But for those 656, we just see those folks differently, I guess, because I believe every one of them deserves a chance.
Okay, let's go to Representative Baum.
Thank you, Chairman White. And Leader Lamberth, I thought I would share an interesting perspective on how this legislation may actually be saving Rutherford County a little money. Up until this last year, Rutherford County, year after year, had been growing at 1,000 students or more. And what that meant was Rutherford County had to initiate the construction of a new school building every year. Elementary schools cost about $75 million in Rutherford County, high schools $150 million. So when Rutherford County schools had their 5-year building campaign, they needed about 5 new schools. They had a 5-year capital campaign that ranged anywhere from $600 to $800 million. But with the last year's freedom accounts that were offered, the Rutherford County school system stayed at about the same level. It really didn't grow at all. I guess that means if it had been growing about 1,000 students a year, that maybe about 1,000 students had taken one of these freedom accounts. 20,000 were offered, so that's about 5% of the number that were offered across the state. And so the result was the county government was able to skip a year on their building campaign. Didn't have to build a school one year. And the county mayor was so excited, he decided he would instead propose taking that money and build a new jail. Anyway, it sounds to me like the people in Rutherford County are all benefiting. The students who have revealed their preference by taking these freedom accounts to go to a different school, a private school, they're revealing that they're better off because they voluntarily elected to do that. The county government in Rutherford County is able to skip a year building a $100 million school, and the county mayor may get his jail. So anyway, I thank you for this legislation.
Thank you, Representative. Not, I'll go to Chairman Sapicki.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I gotta be careful how I do this. So bill sponsor, all of the current weights or measures for someone to apply for the new scholarships. This is not a question, this is just a statement. All of those are still intact. They're not changing. All of the metrics are still there that you have to qualify for. So we're not changing the program year over year. We're just increasing the number. That's a fact. That's what we're doing. Current law states that because we hit the threshold, it will automatically increase 5,000 scholarships subject to funding of the General Assembly. That's a fact. It's a fact that the hold harmless for our public schools is still in the bill. That has not changed. We have, as I've sat here over the last 8 years, I think I've voted on roughly probably billions and billions of dollars of increase to our public school system. Teacher pay, the new funding formula through TISA, trying to figure out how we can get better academic outcomes that our public schools now are doing. I'm pulling this up, Mr. Speaker. I'm kind of stalling here for a second. To where when I got here 8 years ago, we were languishing in the 40s in testing. Thankful that Mississippi and Alabama were around, so we could at least say we're not as bad as them. And now we sit through the hard work of our public schools, 24th and 4th grade reading, 13th and 4th grade math, 21st and 8th grade reading, and 20th in math. We're now pretty good. Not good enough, but we're pretty good. With the safeguards that we've put in place for our public schools, I think that they're in a position right now that they can flourish to where maybe after this academic year, those numbers I just gave you in the 20s and the high teens, maybe we're in the single digits. And now we're having different conversations in this committee. How do we go from pretty good to great? On the Education Freedom Scholarship, there's been a lot of comments about this is only serving private school kids. When we were passing this bill last year, I had 2 parents that were calling me every week on this bill because they had one child that had to go for reasons to a private school. But it was economically hurting the family that they could not bring the sibling from public school. And when we passed this bill, now both siblings were able to go to the same private school for reasons academically that they needed to go to. We have to make really tough decisions here. We sit on all different kinds of committees, and we have to make really tough decisions here because the decisions we make affect children's lives and their outcomes in lives. I'd be willing to argue with the members of this committee that if we had 10 new private schools that were going into ground today, and let's say those were 10,000 seats, and 10,000 kids would go from a public school to those private schools through the Education Freedom Scholarship, I seriously doubt the argument would change from the other side. And that's a fact. I am anxiously looking forward to the results that come from the kids that are in the Education Freedom Scholarship at the end of this year. That when we get that data, I think we're going to be changing lives. Doesn't matter whose lives it is, we're changing lives. Knowing that our public schools have gone from X to Y, and now can we get to the finish line to have a great educational public system, a great private system, a great charter system, and a great virtual system. And let the parents decide what they want to do. It's pretty, as my colleague from East Tennessee said, it's pretty simple. Let's err on the side of the kids. Err on the side of the kids, and Tennessee will win. All that, Mr. Chairman, I don't have a question. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much. By the way, those rankings you pointed out, those were NAEP scores. I know NAEP is a great organization, by the way. In case you don't know, National Assessment of Educational Progress is a benchmark for our country. We've got three more. We spent an hour on this. I would like to wrap this up in the next few minutes because I've got on another bill, we've got some people who drove all the way from Upper East Tennessee to speak today. So we got to get to those bills. So let's go to Representative Reeves. You're okay. Okay, let's go to Representative Mayberry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to point out a few costs and tuitions that haven't been shared, even in my own county. One was shared, which was the largest cost of a private school in our county. The other two largest private schools in Montgomery County, the cost for tuition is in the $11,000 range. So you're talking under $4,000 for the remainder tuition. This past weekend, I spoke to both the headmasters of both those schools, and they shared with me the overwhelming positive impact the Education Freedom Scholarships have had on both of their schools. And they also shared with me about how they've been able to enroll students that in some cases for years have been wanting to go to their schools, and they just couldn't figure it out, and their income did not allow it to happen. But now they're in a position where they're able to take the Education Freedom Scholarship. The school itself had a scholarship, and they were able to make it work for those families. And I asked them, if we expanded these numbers, how would that impact these schools? And they said that it would be incredible for them to be able to accept more students with these scholarship funds. Also, I'll point out, as they were talking about building projects, both of these schools right now have building projects on the books. They have land purchased, and they are seemingly within a year or two of breaking ground and expanding both their institutions. And I would venture to say that these scholarships are going to be able to make their projects even larger. I also want to point out one last thing. 2 months ago in our school board meeting, the question was asked by one of my colleagues on the school board: has our district lost any funding because of he said vouchers, but Education Freedom Scholarships? And our district's response was, no, we have not. We have not lost a single cent. Our overall budget has gone up. So those are just a few comments I wanted to share.
Thank you, Chairman Slater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few weeks ago during budget hearings, the Department of Education was testifying and the question came up about capacity as it relates to education freedom scholarships. In other words, is there enough capacity in private schools in order to accommodate more freedom scholarships? It was also referenced earlier today by my colleague from Dixon County, and that is a valid question. If we do expand the education freedom scholarships, are there enough spaces in private schools? After I heard that testimony in the budget hearings, I reached out to a friend of mine who is a member of the governor's non-public school advisory council. The non-public school advisory council has been for decades. It's not just this administration. I know that it goes back to at least the mid-90s when I first came to Tennessee. And so I asked him to poll the members of the non-public school advisory council. This council is made up of different non-public school, private school associations. For example, the Tennessee Association of Independent Schools, the Tennessee Association of Christian Schools, the Catholic Diocese Schools, a number of different associations. It's been in existence for once again, for decades. So he took time to poll those associations. He was not able to get feedback in time for today for all of the associations. In fact, the largest that is part of that non-public school advisory council, they were not able to get back with him. But just the ones that got back with him in preparation for today, 25,000 open spaces are available now. That's not building more schools. That's 25,000 spaces available now. So I think that that is a valid question. Is there capacity? We would not want to award a scholarship and then students not be able to attend a school. But there are spaces available now. And I would follow up that several of these associations are not just concentrated, their schools are not just concentrated in the urban areas, but they have schools in the in rural areas as well. I'll emphasize too that the ones that responded are qualified schools because they're category 1, 2, and 3 schools. No category 4 schools, which is everyone on this committee knows, they are not eligible. You're not eligible to take a Freedom Scholarship to a category 4. But category 1, 2, and 3 schools, there are 25,000 plus spots available. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Before we wrap this up, I just want to end on a personal story, Mr. Sponsor. Being from Memphis, we get a lot of times, we talk about money, we talk about so many things, but it's more than just that also. About 20, 25 years ago, I'm forgetting the details, in North Memphis, there was a hostage takeover, and it was about 8 children were shot and killed in this neighborhood, and it was really a sad thing. Well, this little church started a school in that neighborhood for these children. And today their tuition is about $8,000 to $9,000 a year for this school. There's about 70 to 80 kids in it still. And I went over there for graduation one night and talked to the parents. And this grandmother, who she's helping raise 4 children, she came to me and she says, I don't know what I would do if it wasn't for this school. My children were not, no fault to the public school, but she said my children were not, or my grandchildren were not functioning in that school. They cried. They didn't want to get up in the morning and go. They weren't happy. And now this school is open and they come over here, they get up and get ready in the morning and they're happy. That's part of this equation too, that these children are happy and they want to get up and go to school. And that's where a lot of this comes in also. So there are a lot of good things, and the debate's been great. And I understand both sides of the debate, but appreciate the discussion. Everyone did very well. So Chairman Raper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I call the question.
Okay, the question's been called. Any objection to the question? Hearing none. Madam Clerk, would you please put the vote on the board? Madam Clerk, call the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 11 ayes, 9 nays, and 0 present.
Thank you. House Bill 253, who's out of finance? Thank you. Thank you. Okay, members, we're going to next call up first of all, item number 3 will roll for 1 week. House Bill 2533 rolled 1 week. The next one, item number, we're going to jump to item 37. We have some out-of-town guests to speak. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Okay. Yeah, where is it? Okay, item number 37, House Bill 1729 by Chairman Slater. You have a motion and a second on your bill. Let me get to the right page. You have any amendments, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I have amendment 013470.
Is it, James rewrites the bill?
Yes.
Okay. Any objection to adding the amendment to the bill for proper discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of adding the amendment to the bill indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, you may explain your bill now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, there are 2 parts to this bill. Now, there are 11 sections, but there are 2 parts to this bill. I'd like to just indicate which sections go to the parts, so to speak. Part 1 is section 1 through 3. And that deals with independent homeschoolers. And specifically, they are now required to take the TCAP test. This would allow parents to choose a standardized test selected by the parents. So that's part number 1. In addition to that, in part number 1, right now there are both some remediation and then some consequences for independent homeschoolers as related to the district. And this bill as amended would remove those. And I just state to let the members know that districts are supportive of this as well, because this is an area where they have not been engaged and really would rather not be engaged. Then there's part 2 is sections 4 through 11. And this kind of changes what the bill covers. And in sections 4 through 11, we introduce the Classic Learning Test, or the CLT, alongside the ACT and the SAT as it relates to K-12 education. And we do have some folks that did travel a distance to come and testify. And Mr. Chairman, I'm at your will, but I would point out that Mr. Will Estrada is going to speak to that first section that relates to independent homeschoolers. And then Michael Torres and Chase Coffey. Michael Torres speaking for this bill, and then Chase Coffey opposed to this bill, are speaking for part number 2. So it may be helpful to have them come up, part 1 and part 2, but I'm at your will, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. So you'd like to do that at this point?
Yes.
Okay. Without objection, then we're going to go out of session. And I would like to ask for part 1, Michael Torres, would you come on up and sit at the table? Okay, I'm sorry, Will Estrada. Will Estrada first. If you sit to the left on the table or to my left, then you're fine. You're fine. You're fine. You're fine. You sit there. I'll put the other group over here. And the other part 2 group, which is Michael Torres and Chase Coffey, if y'all come on up and be prepared for your part 2 for the sponsor of the bill. So we're out of session now. Whenever we recognize you, just state your name and who you're with for the record. And I'm going to come back to the bill sponsor to introduce what you want to question. and the timing is 2 minutes each. Chairman Slater.
Yeah, and Mr. Estrada is with the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, and he'll speak to the first part of the bill, which is sections 1 through 3.
You are recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the House Education Committee. My name is Will Estrada. I'm senior counsel at the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. I'm a homeschool graduate, homeschool dad. I was here 2 weeks ago to testify in the K through 12 subcommittee, so it's a privilege to be back. I want to speak specifically about how this bill will give more options to homeschoolers who are in independent homeschooling, won't affect the vast majority of homeschoolers who are in church-related schools or Category 3 schools. Very simply, families in option 1, the annual notice of intent, they are only allowed to take the TCAP test in grades 5, 7, and 9. This bill will expand it to a nationally normed standardized achievement test. The second provision, however, is I think what some people have asked questions about, and this deals with the current penalties in Tennessee's homeschool law if a homeschool student were to score at a fairly low level. This language was drafted by my friend Claiborne Thornton with Tennessee Home Education Association back in 1985. It was a compromise. We didn't feel it was necessary. Homeschoolers do very well academically, but the legislature at that time wanted it to be in there, and so it was put in. Since 1985, so for 41 years, not a single homeschooler has ever been put back into the public school due to this language. So it's an antiquated, unnecessary section. And then more specifically, about 20 states do require homeschoolers to take some testing or evaluation. But of these, only 7 states, and these are Hawaii, New York, Oregon, Minnesota, Colorado, North Dakota, and West Virginia, have some sort of statutory remediation plan if a homeschooler were to score low. And only 3 states follow what Tennessee does of having actual penalties of a homeschooler potentially being put back in public school. These states are New York, Oregon, Colorado, and Tennessee. So we're simply asking that the law be amended to make it more similar to the vast majority of states, take away these penalties. Testing is there so parents and teachers know where kids are so they can help kids to improve.
Thank you very much. Chairman Slater, anybody wants to talk? Okay, Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know. Well, I'll ask my question. In terms of the new test, the COT test, does your organization have anything to do with the administering or advertising? Or is there anything that your entity can gain by us shifting from the TCAP to this test?
It's a great question.
Hold on. Wait. I did wait and turn your light on.
You recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative. It's a great question. No, we do not. We work closely with College Board, with ACT. We simply just want more options so families can choose which test is best for their kids and which test they want to participate with. So we have no financial stake or any relationship with the Classic Learning Test Company or with College Board or ACT.
Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this test is not, you're not going to be able to compare that to the TCAP because different tests you can't compare against each other. So there's really not a way to compare these kiddos to the kids that are taking Tennessee tests.
You're recognized.
Thank you. That is correct. I will note there's not a single state in the nation other than Tennessee that requires homeschoolers to just take a state test. So the vast majority of states that have some sort of testing, say a nationally normed standardized achievement test, or have along the nationally normed the state test as well.
Follow up?
Yeah, just quickly. And I don't have a problem with them taking a nationally normed test, but I think it's important that they take a test that also determines where they stand against kid to kid from Tennessee and what they are learning. So I have a little bit of concern with that, but thank you.
Thank you. I know I got a couple more, but Chairman Speaker, you have one of this guest. We got part two getting ready to come up. I'm going to recognize him. Go ahead. You're recognized, Chairman Speaker.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairman. Do you have a crosswalk of expectation from your students that take the classical learning test to performance on the ACT?
You're recognized.
You know, I don't actually know the answer to that. It's a great question, but I apologize. I do not know the answer to that.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we're going to recognize part two. Who would like to go first? Can you state your name for the record?
My name is Michael Torres. I'm the Policy Director for Classic Learning Tests.
You're recognized.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Chairman White and members of the committee, thank you very much for having us here today, and thank you for presenting this bill. The state of Tennessee has taken significant steps in recent years to increase both choice and accountability in its education system. HB 1729 bolsters both of those efforts by expanding assessment choice options for independent homeschool students and by recognizing the classic learning test. The CLT is a fast-growing alternative to the SAT and ACT that was created in 2015 by a former teacher and SAT test prep company owner. Similar to other college entrance exams, it is a valid and reliable assessment of math and English. The CLT is nevertheless unique because it does not align to the Common Core. Instead, it is rooted in a classic approach to education that prioritizes deep literacy, high-level grammar and writing skills, and mathematical achievement and ability independent of technology. The test reading passages are sourced primarily from classic texts of philosophy, science, and literature, from Plato to Frederick Douglass, from Isaac Newton to Albert Einstein. The math section has a focus on complex arithmetic, algebra, geometry, trigonometry, logic, and reasoning questions with no calculators allowed. The CLT is also highly rigorous. Only one student has ever earned a perfect score. And in a November 2025 study of CLT's ability to predict college success by an independent researcher at Grove City College found that the test is 5% more predictive than the SAT. The 10 years since the CLT's launch have proven that there is a desire for alternatives to the college admissions exam duopoly among families, students, and educational institutions. We now partner with more than 330 colleges and universities across the country, including the U.S. Service Academies, the University Systems of North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, and Arkansas, and 14 private institutions of higher education here in Tennessee. An average of 3 new colleges adopted CLT per month last year. 16 have adopted CLT so far this year. And last year we administered 200,000 or nearly 200,000 CLTs, up from just about 25,000 a few years ago. A key reason for this growth is because policymakers in several states have recognized the need to allow for assessment choices, and that's all HB 1729 does. Thank you very much.
We'll go to the next speaker.
Thank you, Chairman
Two
White, and members
minutes.
of the committee. I'm Chase Coffey. I'm the Government Relations Director for the College Board for the state of Tennessee. I want to point out a few independent research on the CLT. It is quite limited, but the Iowa Board of Regents in 2024 review reported no evidence that CLT predicts college readiness or success at public universities. They also noted that the sample size for independent research is fairly small. The same Iowa review found that gaps in the exam's content, the CLT, they found that did not cover full concepts of Algebra 1, Algebra 2, statistics, and data analysis. The review also concluded that there were no evidence that CLT can be used for placement in math or English courses at the university level. I also want to note that Texas A&M is now conducting their own independent research on the CLT, and we're looking forward to being able to review that research when it comes out. Third issues have been raised regarding the score comparability. The CLT published their own concordance tables to compare the SAT and the ACT to their tests. The ACT and SAT produced concordance together to compare those two to be able to have that good, fair comparability between those two tests. And the fourth and final, the CLT is commonly taken at home for private school students. It has a 12-hour testing window, uses recorded live proctoring. So the requirements are that a student needs to be in a specific room, that the room is cleared for the 2 hours, a little over 2 hours that the test is given. They do require a room scan, which is legal because they are private, though it should be mentioned that Elgaberry versus, forgive me, I forget the university, that a federal court did did rule that a room scan forced by a public university is a violation of Fourth Amendment rights. But these are proctored in private, typically in their own home. They're recorded for 2 hours. So that means that there was a recording of that student for 2 hours in their bedroom taking that exam, which does cause privacy and child safety concerns. I spoke with the Professional Educators of Tennessee Association. They also cited the recorded webcam proctoring as a serious child safety issue that they have. That's all. I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much. With that, question, then we'll go back in session. Go, Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So last night, I was unfamiliar with the test. Last night, when I was studying my bills, I started looking up what colleges accept this test and even went state by state by the colleges that accept this test. And out of all the states and all the colleges that accept the test, I maybe recognized 5 names of colleges that take this test. And so to me, I feel like I'm concerned about people thinking that they're taking this test and it's going to get them into any college, because that's just not going to be the case. So my question, I appreciate you raising the issues with the test, because that's what I was thinking about. An online test with, at home is very concerning on what those scores were. But in addition, is this going to give kids the idea that I take this test, it'll get me in any university, when actually it's very limited in who's accepting this test? So
And you're directing the question to
Chase.
Chase, you're recognized.
I wouldn't speak to what the impression that students have of where CLT would be accepted. I think that really falls on CLT to advertise who accepts their own exam.
Thank you. You have a quick follow-up? Go ahead.
Yes. So I guess what my point would be, a lot of times kids are really bad about getting some of that information. So my concern is they might think, oh, I've got a choice of 3 tests. I'm going to take this one. And every college they are making applications to don't accept that test. Then they have to set up, they're behind. They've got to take another test. I really think I just really think that this is a bad idea and is going to put some of our students as they graduate in a bad situation. But thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else while we're out of session? Seeing none, we are back in session. Chairman Slater, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And members, I would draw your attention to the fact that this bill is not putting into code that any of our colleges or universities would accept the CLT. That may be a bill for a different year and actually in a different committee. But this bill does not address in any way the CLT for college admissions purposes or for college scholarship purposes. The CLT, as has already been testified to, is about 10 years old. Its popularity continues to increase. I think that there are probably, most members would recognize a lot of the places that do accept it for college admissions. All of the state universities in Florida, all of the state universities in North Carolina, all of the state universities in Georgia, except for 2, all of the state universities in Indiana, and including coming soon will be our service academies like West Point and the Air Force Academy. So this, though, is not a bill that has anything to do with college admissions or college scholarships. It's strictly a bill that recognizes the CLT as it relates to K-12 education alongside of ACT and SAT offerings in K-12 education. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Members, or anyone else? I'm going to see if we move on. Anyone else? If not, I would like to get one more bill in. We got a guest from out in Unicoi County. Representative Kinsey, can you keep it short?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And to the sponsor, you initially said that this isn't about higher ed and then laid out a whole bunch of higher eds that that take it. So I do think this is, you showed us the forecast of, I guess, the 115th General Assembly bill coming forward. But my biggest concern with this one is we're not getting apples to apples comparison. We're introducing another, dare I say, unproven test as it relates to the TCAP, which is proven. And now we're going to try to draw analogies. That's just, it's hard to gather data and to make sure that we're on the same page. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Representative Baum?
Thank you, Chairman White. And Chairman Slater, we've discussed the CLT before. I share some of the committee's concerns about this test. One of my concerns is when all of the students take the TCAP, you're able to make an apples to apples comparison. When they all take the ACT, you're able to make an apples to apples comparison to make decisions based on merit. When we introduce an additional test, that becomes more difficult. If we were to introduce 10 more tests that are all options, it would become impossible. My understanding is that there is no concordance between the CLT and the ACT because the ACT hasn't shared their data to permit such a concordance to be developed. I know the ACT has been criticized from the left in times past, and now maybe a little bit from the right because it doesn't focus or on a classic curriculum. But I've seen the ACT for years and worked with students on it. It's basically just math and reading comprehension. And if a student wants to demonstrate their reading comprehension skills, they ought to be able to do that whether the passage is on George Washington and the Revolutionary War, or whether the passage is on a science experiment, or whether the passage is on the culture of Malaysia. It really shouldn't matter. And so as a result, keeping merit based on the ACT keeps the playing field level. In fact, I would be more impressed if students from schools that have a classic curriculum, whether it's a charter school or a private school, I'd be more impressed if they outperformed other students on the ACT than I would be if they claimed to be getting superior scores on a different test like the CLT. How would you compare a 30 on the ACT to a 610 on the CLT? So anyway, I'm pulling for the students who are in classic curriculums, but I think they ought to prove their success on the ACT. I think that's what would be really impressive. And so I think this bill, even though it just affects K through 12, I think it starts us down along a dangerous path.
Thank you. We have no one. Okay. Thank you so much. Come back to the sponsor before any comments. Okay, no comments. Sponsor. Any objection to the question being called? Here and all those, Madam Clerk, would you please put the vote on the board? Everyone voted? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have 10 ayes and 8 nays.
Okay, 10 ayes. The House Bill 1729 moves out to calendar and rules. Thank you very much. Members, I apologize. Well, I thought we was going to get about 15 bills in the day, but hell's getting ready to come in. Mr. English, thank you for being here today. We're out of time, but I just wanted to recognize that you're here. I hope you can come back. It's just that time of year where we got a lot more bills. So members, is there anything else? Members, item number 51, House Bill 225 is off notice. All remaining bills be rolled to next week. We are adjourned.